see. What should we do next here? What do we say? Venusaire next? All right, let's see what he's got going on here. Haven't seen anything from him in a while. 3 F's of creativity. The artist guided not giving a f**k. I can feel it already. I'm gonna zone out. It's gonna be some existential that's just gonna be really hard to pay attention to.
It's often said that as creators, we are our own worst critics. If you look through any music-related subreddit, you're bound to find dozens of posts of people commiserating about how much their music sucks. And this is a feeling that even the most successful artists know all too well.
But sometimes ideas, you know, they're not always the greatest.
Yeah. That's the worst song I ever wrote.
Why does everyone like that song? That song is so boring.
A moment like this or Breakaway, really any other song.
You didn't want to do that song.
No.
My Heart Will Go On?
But at the same time, sort of paradoxically, it's in that ability to not care about criticism or what other people think that allowed these artists to make the things that we respect them so much for. So a couple of weeks ago, I decided to ask a question. I rounded up the answers, and the most common themes seemed to be perfectionism.
God damn it. I was gonna ask you guys, what do you think was the most common answer? But I think it's perfectionism. It's just showing it on the screen right now, so I have a feeling that's probably what it is.
Self-doubt, a fear of judgment, a lack of confidence, some kind of technical challenge or discrepancy, marketing and promotion, comparison to other artists, a fear of the future and the point of their work and long-term impact, a lack of external...
I think for me, it's like a lot of the times it's not at a level where I want it to be. Like it's like a good idea, but it's not fleshed out to the extent that I want it to be. And I'm having trouble getting it to that point.
Validation, and some kind of sense of personal growth and development from not releasing work, but deciding to work on new things that are better. I think that the point of my videos anymore is just to inspire creative people to do creative things. And in this video, if you're one of those people that's struggling with these things, I wanted to share with you, I think, my key philosophy that I've learned with what happens when it comes to things that hold my own work back. So in this video, I would like to present you with my key philosophy with creativity in life with what I call the 3 F's of creativity. F this, f me, and f you.
What's the point of censoring it in the text, but not your voice?
And f you.
Because it clearly understands what you're saying. It's more likely to understand what you're saying than the text in the YouTube algorithm, so it doesn't really serve any purpose. Any tips on creativity, Weebs? Like in relation to what? What is the context? Are you talking about like making music? I don't know, I'm gonna need a more detailed question.
Some of the most common challenges we face as artists are things like self-criticism, a comparison to others, and seeking that external validation when it comes to all of our work and all that kind of stuff.
But I think one thing that's really important is to try to figure out when you're viewing things objectively versus subjectively. Because I think a lot of times when people are listening to their own music, they will be looking at it subjectively and comparing it to other people's music subjectively and not objectively. You know, like you just have to realize when you're doing which thing. Because I feel like a lot of people don't know when they are doing which thing, and that can kind of cause this like alteration where they can't compare things properly anymore. When you feel like you're in a spell of making bad music, do you have any tips to push through? Try different methods, or try to analyze what went wrong or why you think it went wrong. Sometimes like just like taking a break can be good too. Doing something else. I don't know, those are probably all pretty common answers, but it seems to help me. Like changing the method on which you approach things can help too. Like if you're having issues making non-sample based music and like you keep trying and you keep failing, maybe do some sample based music or remix something. If you don't really want to do that, you can analyze why something else you like works and then try to utilize the information somehow in your music going forward.
I think the most important thing you can do for yourself as an artist when it comes to all that stuff is just say, this. By learning to not be afraid to abandon an idea or just call it done with the
sometimes you gotta know when something is not worth the effort too.
Simple test of trusting your gut. I think
you need to objectively analyze potential too. Understanding when you're looking at something objectively versus subjectively can be really powerful, because if you can objectively say this has potential, this can go somewhere, then you know when it's worth staying on the road to finishing, right?
Able to ultimately create a better and more authentic body of work as an artist because you're only doing the things that really speak to to you instead of bending something into an idea that you think someone else will like. I think this philosophy also makes your workflow so much more efficient.
Kind of getting at the same. I feel like he's kind of getting at something similar to what I'm saying, because he's kind of talking about your perception versus what someone else would like. Because often, okay, a lot of artists will sometimes be like, this is good, or this is not good to me because it is not complex enough. Like, it really depends on the person and what they look for in music. But some people are like, this is not complex enough for me to be happy with it. But often the audience doesn't want complexity. They just want something catchy. You know, it doesn't have to be the most complex thing in the world. It just has to be something they can relate to or want to listen to often.
Because if you think about it, how much more
it's just a random thought there.
Would you be able to get done if you were willing to simply say "F this" to an idea that's just not working and instead move on to something that has you a little more excited, even if it's only within that moment? Now, all this stuff is nice to sit here and say, but how do we actually learn to implement this idea in our creative lives? And that's where the other two F's of this creative philosophy come into play. I'm pretty sure it was Carl
Me, you suck and you need to deal with it. Okay.
Jung that said, the second half of life is learning to let go of ego. And if I'm misremembering that, well, then me. I think the most important aspect of self-awareness as a creative is learning to just identify the real sources of your own self-doubt. And for this, exercises like journaling can be pretty helpful.
Another idea for a different approach to making music is to compose with something else on in the background, like some sort of video, like write to like a video. That's just another random idea, but just like changing up the process can always be, God, I hate saying the process, but changing up the process is always valuable, because I feel like a lot of times with creativity, people get stuck in a rut where they feel like they're doing the same thing over and over. So the more you can kind of change out what you're doing, the better. That's why it's good to not start the same way every time, like not always starting with drums, not always starting with like a pad or something. It's best to just start off in different routes. That way you can get to a different ending. Journaling. Okay, yeah, I'm on that. I'm agreeing with you there.
If you think about success, is a toddler finger painting any more of an artist than someone like Picasso? Are you any less of a musician than your favorite artists? When it comes to the idea of success in creative work, I think the only thing we can really have in mind is some kind of goal, whether that's to finish the thing or start something new or complete a bigger project.
Something else valuable too is to not like put people on a pedestal. Like everyone could be a successful musician, you know, or artist or whatever you're trying to do, skateboarder or whatever. Like no one is special. No one has any special abilities. You can do the thing you want to do. You just have to, you know, practice enough or, you know, put enough effort into a single thing that is worth putting effort to. Just be, you know, I don't know, work on the skills as well that they're required to get there.
Project or work towards some achievement, as long as that goal.
I mean, fully find a movie that you like and compose a song to the action scenes or something like that. It doesn't need to be a movie. You have the rights to do anything. Yeah.
Is realistic and within your means. The only thing you can realistically expect of yourself is just to work towards that. As long as you've made progress, that's the only real definition of success that I think we can offer ourselves. Whether or not we accept and realize it, it's not that the world is really against us and our creative work and endeavors. It's just that most people are busy doing their own things and living their own life. I think the sort of paradox with...
True. Another thing too about, this is not really about creativity, but more so about failure of your music to take off in terms of people listening to it. A lot of people will look at a song with not a lot of views and then say, my music sucks. It only has 150 views. But the thing is, views is only the amount of views or plays or just the amount of people that have clicked on it. That's more so a marketing failure than a failure for it to be good. Because you can make something good and have it not get views or plays. You know, maybe you could look more so at other things too, like other metrics like likes and comments, but even that doesn't matter because what if it's going out to the wrong market? Then that also doesn't matter. So I think a lot of people will judge the wrong metrics to come to a conclusion about their art too. Yeah, promo is everything I tell people now, and promo does not mean ads or paying for shit. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. I don't know, it's a very complex thing.
In the creative process is that although we have this goal-oriented mindset, we want fans, we want to achieve something or whatever, we have this expectation of the process, but at the same time, the ultimate thing is just to love the process itself. All this is to say the most important thing in art is to do and create the things that we find most enjoyable. So that's...
Yeah, another thing too, making something that you like, if you genuinely like a song that you made objectively and subjectively, then there are going to be other people that like it as well too. Oh my God, I said as well too. I've been trying not to say that for the longest time, but there will be people that like it as well because, you know, a lot of people have similar tastes and sensibilities. So when you like something that you've made, there will be other people that like it too.
Maybe where the third and most important of the three F's comes into play. The idea of imperfection, I think, is easy to understand because as humans, we create art, and art is human, and humans are imperfect, therefore true art is imperfect. It's stupid and maybe a bit school textbook sounding, but that's the truth. It's easy to get obsessed with all the details, especially in this world of social media tips and quick hacks and tutorials and free PDFs about stupid bullshit that doesn't matter, and this makes it easy to forget that the ultimate goal of art is self-expression, and the flaws are what often give something character. As we all know, the closer we get to perfection with something, the more it just becomes this clinical, boring, sterile version of itself. And I think Brian Eno once said something to the effect of, as soon as something can be avoided, it'll be emulated. And I think this is best exemplified with all the goddamn lo-fi plugins out there nowadays. The truth we all
Yeah, it needs to stop. It must stop. How many more do we need? I feel like we had RC20 and then we could have stopped after that. None of this needed to exist.
out there nowadays. The truth we all need to remember and accept now and again is that you're never going to be as good as your heroes because you're the sum of your heroes, and your own ideas are what fill in the gaps between your influences to make something new. I think the best way to put this is that you exist somewhere as a shittier version of multiple things, and by being that shittier version,
You get the hype by Ableton now? Yeah, I mean, Ableton to me just makes more sense in terms of workflow. The workflow of FL Studio is kind of painful for me. It just feels clunky and unoptimized, but I mean, it's far from bad.
and you are ultimately you, and the more you express that, the more you become a dot on someone else's map to be a shittier version of. Jim Rohn once said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and while this idea is maybe a little bit flawed, I think it's an important thing to understand as a creator. You are the amalgamation of all the things that you consume and the people that you surround yourself with. So if you find yourself stuck in this sort of proverbial room of crappy people who don't support you or challenge you in any sort of interesting
I feel like this is a little bit off topic.
way, you're in the wrong room. As a YouTuber, I certainly know the comment section all too well, and if I've learned anything in my time when it comes to dealing with probably 98% of online criticism, it's that the people with the least to show often have the most to say. I think as an artist, if you want to create something meaningful, it comes down to embracing one sort of simple idea. If you want to express yourself, then you can't be working to impress other people. Great art comes from this internal need to create, and not a need to be validated. If you think about it, would we have the Beastie Boys Sabotage if Adam Horovitz was afraid his vocals were too nasal? Would we have Getting Over It if Bennett Foddy was worried that the narrative and voiceover was too pretentious? Then why are you incapable of just doing something rather than sitting there worrying about what your work might be perceived as? The simple truth is that some people are just going to hate you and your work for no particular reason at all. But f those people, because you're not doing it for them anyway. The plain and simple and kind of ugly truth here is whatever you're working on and obsessing over and holding off on releasing and worrying about is all being done on borrowed time. As Seneca once said, it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. When it comes to the perfection of your work or the things you're worrying about,
Venus spitting right there. Everyone who is struggling probably just needs to hear that last part for real. Yeah.
or the value of your work, or
This is actually probably my favorite Venus Theory video because it feels like it actually has something to say. I feel like a lot of times his videos just feel like they get lost in the whole stoniness. Like this one actually makes a point.
the praise and criticism and advice of others, or pretty much everything in pretty much any other aspect of life, the only truth I know is that everything matters exactly as much as you let it. So in the meantime, all I'm asking of you is just to f***ing go out and make something that you think is important.
That was good. I like. Definitely my favorite Venus video. Let's see. Yeah, he hasn't posted in a while, man. I think it was a month. Okay. I thought it was longer than that. I thought it was like 3 months or something. Feels like it was way longer than that.
The Band Incorporated.